The Commanders and the Seattle Seahawks are the last two organizations in the NFL without a head coach. And it's like we were holding out. Is it Ben Johnson? Is it going to be Mike Macdonald? Is it going to be Dan Quinn? We know who it's not going to be for sure, Curtis. It's not going to be Ben Johnson. He goes, look, I'm going to stay home with the Detroit Lions. What could have enticed him to stay, or what did he what requirements or requests did he have that might have scared some people off, man? And according to Adam Schefter, Ben Johnson was not the head coaching lock that people thought, and his asking price spooked some teams per sources. So word on the street is he was asking for a lot of money. He was in the teens when it comes to his asking price.
He's got a pretty cushy gig with the Lions right now, just making it the NFC Championship game. They've made improvements year after year after year in his 3 seasons with Detroit. I can understand the appeal of going back and getting another year of experience and having your pick of the litter next year being the top name on the market, whereas this year I think he was just one of a few names. It was a pretty crowded coaching market. But, yeah, this is a pretty stunning development here to start off this Tuesday bump, where we had all kind of thought it was coming down to one of 3 guys, Mike Macdonald, Dan Quinn, or Ben Johnson, and then Johnson takes his name out of the running. We had heard a few months ago from Josina Anderson, who I think is with CBS Sports now, talking about Ben Johnson's asking price, and she said it was in the teens in terms of millions of dollars. Like, we're talking $15 million around there, which I think is more than what Pete Carroll had been making at the end of his tenure. I know coaching salaries are not really made public in the NFL, but you kind of have a good read on that. So if Johnson truly was asking for that much as a first-time head coach, I mean, obviously coaching salaries aren't impacting your salary cap, so it really shouldn't be of anybody's worry, because it's not our money. But like, I could see why teams would be a little skittish of that. But when I look at this and how it impacts the Seahawks now, Bump, I think we can firmly say the Seahawks are going with a defensive head coach.
Yeah, unless something crazy happens, expect Mike Macdonald or Dan Quinn. And I'd be okay with either or. I understand people are going to say Dan Quinn. Let's get something fresh. What are you doing? I think Mike Macdonald is now the favorite for most guys. I look at Ben Johnson in this situation. I go, why would he want to stay over there with the Lions? He's done some great things with the Lions. 4 different players with 500-plus scrimmage yards. That's tied for most in the NFL. The Hawks have 4, not too far behind them. What he's done over there with Jared Goff, man, he's second in pass yards the last 2 years and second in touchdown interception ratio, 59 touchdowns to 19 interceptions. He knows how to get his quarterback to play at a high level. So then I look at the Commanders and the Seahawks. All right, you got Sam Howell over there, but the Commanders do hold the number 2 pick in the draft, so he would have been able to go and get his quarterback. And now Geno Smith, I think he may have looked at Geno and said, I already have that in a Jared Goff. So I think once you combine his asking price, his relationship with Jared Goff, obviously, the weapons that he has on offense, and maybe the way he looks at that division over there with the Detroit Lions, he's thinking, man, maybe it doesn't get much better than this, and I'm not getting the money that I want anyway.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most surprised with Johnson deciding to go back to Detroit is that the Washington job didn't entice him enough. You mentioned having the number 2 overall pick, having your choice of basically whoever it is of the trio of Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, who doesn't get picked number 1 overall. Like, you could pick whoever it is that you want to guide your organization from the quarterback spot going forward. They have brand new ownership there. Josh Harris buying that team for, $6 billion from Dan Snyder. So the Commanders don't have that stink anymore that they used to have. And look, if I'm an offensive head coach and I want to start somewhere as a head coach, like, getting my own quarterback would be a huge, huge selling point, and it's interesting that that wasn't enough to entice Ben Johnson. Now, looking at what the Seahawks could give him, you mentioned having Geno Smith here, but there's also the decision to be made on Geno, which is, I think, February 16th. The Seahawks have to decide on what his future is going to be here in Seattle, whether or not they're going to pick up that guaranteed money that's owed to him. So I can see it from Ben Johnson's point of view as to why he'd go back to Detroit, but I don't think Washington and Seattle are bad landing spots for an offensive-minded head coach.
No, I don't either. You look at the Commanders. Obviously, you got one of the best receivers in the game, a quiet superstar over there. People don't really give him the love that he deserves. You got McLaurin. You got Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, a nice 1-2 combo. Gibson didn't put up the numbers that we're used to seeing over there. We mentioned Sam Howell, but you can go and get your quarterback. And I think that, to me, is the most interesting dynamic of this thing, is that you're either going to get Caleb or Jaden Daniels or J.J. McCarthy, whoever you want. Probably not Caleb. We know he's going to go number one. And you can mold this guy and make him yours. So what that tells me is that they didn't check enough boxes, or the vibes just weren't right. I don't know much about Ben Johnson's personality, but I do know that John Schneider wants to keep a lot of what Pete Carroll has built over here. And now when you sit down and when you're in an interview and roles are reversed, right? Do you have any questions for me, right? Ben Johnson's asking John Schneider questions, and maybe he didn't get the answers that he wanted. Maybe it could be something as simple as just scheduling, or how things are ran inside VMAC as far as the people upstairs and management or whatnot. It could be deeper than football, because I'm looking at the whole situation and I go, this is a real good situation over here. Real good job over here. You have a quarterback. You got a number 16 pick if you really want to go get a quarterback. You got weapons on offense. I look at the Seahawks' weapons compared to Detroit. I think they're comparable. Maybe you lean more towards the offensive line when it comes to the Detroit Lions. You can look at the running back position. That's a wash there. Receivers, I think the Hawks have a few more, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is a special type of dude. And also that quarterback-coordinator relationship is important, man. I mean, goodness gracious. We look at the way Gino helped Shane Waldron through this whole situation. I feel like if Shane had a rookie or a young quarterback, the Hawks would have struggled mightily these last couple of years. Thankfully, he had a guy who had been there, who had done that. So there's a lot of maybes in this situation with Ben Johnson, because he was the hottest offensive name out there right now, and he decides to stay home. So whatever Dan Campbell and those guys were preaching to Ben Johnson, man, he loved it.